Hello and welcome to another episode of Honest Cars, of course with Warren Ingram. How are you doing, Warren?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
It's been a while since you've seen each other. You've been out and about, traversing the world.
Yeah, exploring our beautiful country and our sometimes really great road network.
I like that sometimes. I like that sometimes a little bit.
Yeah.
So this week we want to talk a bit about hybrid cars. Now, hybrid cars are interesting because a few years ago, hybrid cars became a bit more popular in our country. But even now, I would say, looking at the industry as a whole, people are talking more about electric vehicles because it seems more exciting, it seems a bit more new. But hybrid cars have been around for quite some time. And you recently experienced a hybrid car, which was the Honda Fit. And I'd love to get your opinion on that.
It was a really interesting experience for me because, although I love cars, I don't love spending money on cars.
Yeah.
So to find a car that actually I think is really affordable for almost not the whole of the South African car buyer market, but truthfully maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the South African car buyers can afford to buy that car.
Yeah.
So that was exciting for me to say, well, we're stepping halfway into the new world of half battery, half petrol, right?
Yes.
And then I also thought for me the idea of getting over this range issue. So I keep reading about it electric cars are great, but they've got a problem with range.
Yeah.
And so hybrid to me seems to me the most practical way to step into the new world of a kind of a step into the battery market, but at the same time not having this anxiety about am I going to run out of energy somewhere along the line. I was a bit skeptical about how good quality the car would be. So getting into the car, we've spoken about this off air, but the car has to pass the wife test.
Yes.
So getting into the car with my wife and getting her just comfortable in the car was interesting, and I must say, it didn't give her any anxiety in terms of this is something new, I've got to drive it in a different way.
Yes.
There's a special button, I need a pilot's license or whatever. No funny joysticks, it's a steering wheel, gear lever, everything that we're used to. And so from that perspective, I thought the quality was really good. Driving the car was really easy. And I think that's a good sign because if it's difficult and a strain to get used to, that's I think that's going to be a turn off to people. I thought, I don't mind telling people I've got a second-hand BM SUV, and I felt the quality of the Honda inside was about the same. I can't tell the difference. I'm sure you can, but for someone like me, the steering wheel, the switches, everything worked really well. The only thing I didn't really like about the car was I just thought, coming up to my office here, it's kind of a long, steep hill, and then I felt this is you can actually feel it's a small engine.
Yes.
And so driving around a city, I think day to day, to me it's a perfect car. I'm not sure that I would want to go and do a long, 500k trip where I've got to do a lot of overtaking because I think I'd be a bit scared of that overtaking.
Yeah.
But day to day in a city car. Wow, and then obviously the fuel consumption to me is going to be really good.
Yes.
Especially someone like me who drives kind of like an idiot in terms of not fuel conscious as I should be. I think this car would make a huge difference.
Very true, very true. And it's funny when it comes to hybrid cars. The first thing that I noticed when I jumped into that Honda Fit is you put the button on and you wait for this thing to start up, and then it's still dead quiet because it's in EV mode, and you can kind of do the creeping around in dead silence, and it's a bit freaky, and then at a certain speed the engines kick in and do their whole thing. But I don't know if you noticed that, if depending on the mode that you've got it on, if you're sitting in traffic, for instance, it could easily just switch off and just go straight into EV mode. So you're constantly toggling between electric and ICE power at the same time. But overall, I do think, like you say, that's the best way to acclimatize South African clients when it comes to buying alternative power, wouldn't you say?
I feel we don't have enough charging stations for me, for example, just to go and buy an electric car immediately, even if I could justify the price. Because I think the price is a pain point now. And so for two reasons. I think these hybrid cars incredibly well priced. I mean, I don't know what that exact price is. I know it's over 400.
Yes, just over 400,000 Rand for that. And it's not a bad pricing at the end of the day compared to what you pay for electric vehicles, because there's still very, very hectic taxing on the electric cars because of the luxury items. But I think that government has to sort all that out. But like you say, that you can still get a hybrid for 400 Rand in this country, but the cheapest electric vehicle is going to cost you about 600,000 Rand. But the difference is that's a little 2-door Mini, and this is a 5-door, somewhat family vehicle, because the Fit now obviously has replaced the Jazz. And essentially, I look at those cars, and each time I always look at the buyer profile of a Honda Jazz, and it's always an older person in that car. But it's funny how now they've rebranded it as the Fit, and now I think it gives it a different edge. It's not so much more focused to a maybe slightly more mature audience. It opens up it still has all the quirks that the Jazz had. I don't know if you noticed the two. That's essentially the same car, just different badging.
And I must say, it felt to me like this car, it felt like a better looking car actually than the Jazz. So I mean, and you're probably going to put them side by side and there'll be very little difference. But I also was really surprised by the boot.
Yes.
So I have to say that, because that was my wife's big feedback, was the car drives like a dream for her, but also that the boot is, I mean, it might not be a station wagon or an SUV, but surely if you drop those seats, you can fit an enormous amount.
100%. And you can still do those magic seats that go up this way. So we've actually got a funny video. My brother and I went cycling in a Honda Fit, and we put bikes and all that in the car because it's got these magic seats that allow you to place stuff wherever you want to place it. And from a practicality perspective, it works. And I think sometimes this conservative route, because Honda's route into electrification is a bit more conservative to the likes of other brands that have just gone really, deep into it. I think the conservative route works for the majority of South Africans. If I look at it from a consumer perspective, I want to be educated. I want to say, okay, how does it work? Okay, there's a small battery. You don't have to charge it. You don't have to plug it. Because I think some people still think that hybrids have to be plugged in. And some of them do. You do get plug-in hybrids. But for the most part, they just charge themselves and you've got better fuel economy.
And showing that car to people, the first question they were asking me was, but what happens when we got load shedding? So you're right. So there's still that perception that it has to be charged.
Yes.
And I think it's important, if you're going to launch a car, you don't want to change people's behavior too much.
Yes.
Because anything that requires people to do something new all the time, they just don't do. I mean, we know we're instinctively lazy, all of us. The economists will call it inertia, but I think that we don't like to change. So for me, getting in a car like that, there wasn't a behavior change and a distinct level of comfort. And then especially, and I don't think this car is aimed at female buyers specifically. But what's interesting is female buyers who are not that interested in cars and really want convenience and price, the right price point, etc. That describes my wife now. Yeah. She gets in the car with no issue.
There we go.
And I think that for me is a pass. Would I buy this to replace my now SUV? No, because of the long distance. But I think as a number 2 car, if we've got a city car and we've got a traveling car, it's a brilliant number 2 car. And I have no issue with it at all. And for someone who says, I'm never going to do long distance driving, I'm only going to drive in a city, I can't see why you wouldn't buy the car.
Right? Very, very true. And I fully understand, because we're also sitting in a situation now where fuel's sitting at like 21 Rand a litre. So that is a huge, huge factor to consider, because most people, you look at that 400,000 Rand mark, you can actually get yourself quite a bit. If you're a performance head, you could probably get yourself a pre-owned little Polo GTI, or you get yourself a little Fiesta ST or anything like that. So the petrol head would probably not go the hybrid route, but the thinking person will. And I guess at the end of the day, that's the whole point of this whole thing, is helping consumers make better buying decisions, because you don't want to sit when now fuel is 22 Rand a litre and you can't pay for the fuel for this thing. Whereas if you drive something a bit more practical, it makes more sense from a fuel consumption perspective, because with that car, you're just going to sip fuel. I think you'll probably sit around about 4.5 to 5 litres, I would confidently say, within the city, if you're not very heavy footed. And obviously out on the open road, it's going to get a bit better on top of that. But what do you think from a financing perspective? Because young audiences tend to do that when you think, I've got a 400,000 Rand budget, what's the coolest thing I can buy for that money? But then they hurt themselves in the end.
Well, I mean, that's what I loved your comment about the thinking person's car, because that's what it is. So if you're not buying with your heart, in terms of wanting to impress somebody, so if you're buying a car because you want to get from point A to point B, you want to get there reliably, and you want to get there with a low running cost, I mean, to me, it makes all the sense in the world. And I really think we should kind of have like the anti-sports car movement somewhere along the line to say to people, you know, a sports car is what you buy with money that you can afford to blow. It shouldn't be your get me from point A to point B reliably, because I mean, that's not what it's designed for.
Yeah.
So yes, I think financially, I mean, I'd always prefer to wait for the car to come out and buy it as a demo or as a one-year-old, because then someone else pays for that new price premium.
Very true.
So sorry to the new car sellers, but I think for someone buying a car and wanting to make a difference, firstly to their back pocket in terms of ongoing costs, but secondly for the environment. I mean, that is part. It is a kind of an imperative, right? We have to find ways to spend less, burn less fossil fuel. I think this is a great way to go.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree as well. Sorry, I've actually just lost it there. I couldn't agree more with you. And at the end of the day, I do think that we need to see more hybrids in the country. I mean, in a professional capacity, I have reviewed arguably 6 or 7 electric vehicles in the last few months. And to me, in our country right now, as much as everybody wants to go the whole electric route and the rest of Europe and the rest of the world is really electrifying, because like you say, the infrastructure and for the masses, at the end of the day, you do want something that's going to be realistic. And I think EVs, from that perspective, you want to go hybrid over electric, because that's what's going to speak to the majority of people. Only time will tell, though.
And I would just love to say to government, please speed up this process. You know, get the regulations right. Get rid of these taxes, the punitive taxes. Yeah. If our country can't afford to give incentives to people to buy electric cars, I understand we're a tax-constrained country, but surely we can stop making it punitive.
100%.
And I feel we've got tens of thousands of jobs at risk, because our motor manufacturers that are based here need to make EVs and hybrids, and those need to get sold around the world. And if we don't support them in South Africa, they're going to close down. They're going to go elsewhere. So government, wake up, speed up, please. This is good for all of us.
Very true. Very true. Only time will tell. But I think it's we're on a good wicket with the EVs, or with the hybrid vehicles. I keep saying EVs as opposed to hybrids, but we're on a good wicket with the hybrids. And I do think that for a consumer out there, if you want to test the waters, hybrid's the way to go.